feel an urge to laugh when the gospel was read? I hope so. As you know, I believe that God has a sense of humor. I believe this not only because if God doesn't have a sense of humor, I'm in deep trouble, but also because such a belief is prophetic, given the humorless way many have read and therefore imprisoned the stories of our faith. Without humor, the end result is a theology that is oppressive, even toxic. But I also believe that humor is in God's nature because it seems evident in the stories, and this is one of those stories. Now just imagine yourself sitting with the disciples, listening to Jesus, longing for some hope that things can actually change, longing to know that this movement you are considering joining, even leaving your business and family behind for, has some lasting power to overcome the oppressive power of Rome and the profound despair of generations. You want some kind of image or symbol or strategy so you know it will succeed. So I would be longing for a metaphor that would inspire greatness and power, even pride. And when Jesus compares the kingdom they will build to a mustard seed, I don't know if that would have thrown me off. But what makes me laugh is when he says, almost to explain himself, don't worry. This mustard seed may start small, but it will grow. It will grow and grow. It will grow up to be the mightiest of shrubs. Have you ever in your life described a shrub as mighty? You know, it's one thing to talk about the great redwoods, the mighty oaks, the cedars of Lebanon, but shrubbery? I don't think they had an urge to go print up some t-shirts or hats for the cause. Do you know any sports team called the Shrubs? Have you ever seen an organization called Save the Shrubs? Have you ever told a friend that you go to St. John's because it's like a mighty shrub? Jesus could have been a writer for Monty Python. Actually, I think in some way he was, because they certainly took their cue from some of his sayings. What am I getting at? Well, last week we saw that Jesus' family considered Jesus out of his mind, so much so that what he was described of was an attempted intervention occurred. I noted that this is not a bad way to be seen as out of your mind, because we can let things go to our heads and in the process leave our hearts and souls behind. When that happens, we leave other people behind and forget to be the radically inclusive community Jesus was calling his disciples to be. I'm not saying that the church is not called to do serious work in the world. We do serious work in the world. But what I like to say is that to truly do serious work in the community, you can't take your step back and take a look at yourself with some grace and humor. Being overly serious blurs, even distorts the gracious, loving message of the beloved community Jesus envisioned. Humor brings a lightness and openness that actually creates a welcoming energy, and I believe that Jesus used humor with great skill. We are called to save the shrubbery. What's truly great about shrubbery is its gracious humility and its welcoming spirit. It's intimidating to enter a church building these days. You don't know if you will fit in or find a place of belonging. You don't know if it will be a place where you can perch, even thrive. The shrub reminds us of how gracious we want to be, how welcoming our nature is, and how beautiful laughter can be. May we continue to grow into a mighty shrub where all people can feel at home. One final observation. A shrub in no way inspires hierarchy. It inspires an image of community, a community that relies on one another. This image that Jesus invokes is not one of a mighty eagle atop of the tallest tree. Rather, it's an image of a community of fluttering joy that welcomes all forms of the primal energies of life. After over 25 years at St. John's, there is one thing I am finally getting right. The answers I search for are found not in a solitary journey to some mountaintop, but rather in the gathered community. I would go so far as to say that God speaks to us as primarily in community. It's not a scholar that creates theology. Theology is the work of the gathered community. We do this together or not at all. That is what baptism is about. It's not just a family committing to the community, it's also the community committing to the family. Will you, who witness these vows, do all in your power to support these persons in their faith? In the end, it's about community. I always like to point out that the Greek word, whenever you see the word you in the Bible, it's almost always in plural. And I think the Southerners have this right when they use the word y'all. Whenever you read something, it's not just to you. It's about the gathered community. It's about all of us. It's not about us alone. So I especially want to share a final story with you, Emily and Allison, as you bring these two beautiful children of yours for baptism this morning. It's one of my favorite baptism stories, and this happened one morning in church when during communion, back in the day when we still had communion, a little boy came up with his father to receive the bread and the wine. He could not stop tugging on my robe, my vestments. He wanted to ask me a question. His father said, "Not now, not now, not now." So anyway, at the end of the service, this little boy comes running forward with his dad running after him. Can't wait to ask me a question. And he pointed to the baldacchino that is over your heads right now in the sanctuary. It's that thing that some people kind of refer to as the shower curtain ring around the altar up on the ceiling there. The baldacchino. And this little boy pointed to that, and he asked me, "Is that the actual size of a halo?" Of course, I wanted to tell him, I think mine's much larger than that, but I didn't say that. But what I said was that is not anyone's halo. That's the halo of the entire community at St. John's. And actually, that halo gets larger and larger and larger as we spread love, as we spread the welcome, as we seek to be inclusive of all people, as that halo will extend out into the neighborhood, out into Oakland, out into California, out into our nation and beyond. That halo enlarges because we don't do it alone. We do it together. So we welcome y'all with open arms, open hearts, and an open halo that is already expanding and enlarging because you are adding your unique energy, spirit, and gifts. And for that, we are truly, truly grateful.